Good afternoon, everyone. BC Ridgefield here, coming to you live from London. It's just gone a couple of minutes past midday, making it the same time UTC today on Monday, the 30th of December, and our last live show, my last live show, certainly, of 2024. So just want to start the show by saying a really, really big thank you to all of you that have tuned in, not just this year, but for the last 3 years, actually celebrating being with the Bird Nest for 3 years now. How time really, really flies. So I hope you all had an amazing Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, and I hope you still got some lovely time to spend with family and friends. I love, love, love this time of year. I'm a massive child for Christmas. And to everybody in the chats as well, obviously a big shout out to you all and everybody live, as well as everybody that does watch this on recording, for your wonderful messages, great feedback, constructive and otherwise. Really, really do appreciate it. Seem to have some of the very, very best followers and people that come onto these shows, you know, people that really, really want to seem to work hard and learn, which is what we are all about at the Bird Nest and what I'm all about in terms of what I promote as well. You know, I'm someone that came from a very different background. You know, I came from a very, well, I'd say poor, at very best, middle-class working family in London, you know, sort of did my time in the city, never really came from a finance background, was very fortunate to run businesses and pivoted into trading when I just kind of got addicted to it, I think, like a lot of people do, and then ended up in crypto, ended up with the Bird Nest and the wonderful fam and, you know, some of the most amazing people that we have got with us. And NBA Young Believe, hello mate. Yeah, had a wonderful Christmas, thank you. Hope you did as well. Black Goat, 115k next, nice. I think a lot of people would be very happy to see that. Jacobo, hello mate. Jesse, how we doing? Oh, you've really tested me with this one. Sounds like a wonderful Greek name. Themistocles. Apologies for absolutely murdering that, but love your logo. And good afternoon to you too as well, my friend, as well as everybody else who's pouring in. I don't always get them all come through on the chats. So just wanted to share some positive vibes for the close of 2024. And I think 2025 is going to be a really, really big year. So without further ado, let's jump into the charts and see why we think that might be the case, shall we? Crass, hello, my friend. Also, as well, we are going to run through some alts. So if you have got any that you want me to take a look at, please do let me know. I will jot them down as we go through the show. Obviously, we will start with Bitcoin, then we're going to cover Ethereum, and then we're going to take a little look at Solana. A few people message in as well. SMH, hello from Bangladesh. Hello, my friend. I hope you're enjoying a nice little bit of sunshine, which is severely lacking here in London and has been for a while. In fact, I'm starting to forget what the sun looks like at the moment. So here we are on Bitcoin. So I've got this on the daily here, but I want to show you why I've got these levels on here, because they come from a higher time frame. All right. Ignore these little ones down here. This one's still very prominent because with this, we now have the prior week has closed, failing to take this low, making this a weekly swing low. Yeah, Joe, 123, of course, mate. Is that a awesome Irish flag I see on there as well, mate? Got some wonderful friends over in that part of the world. Telcoin, yeah, sure. So our FA guy, Chris, Crypto Assessor, has been on that for a while. So we've got a nice bag of that sat down. So we'll happily take a look at Tel for you as well. Skimmy Foro, hello. Bom dia to you too, my friend. So really, really simply, I look at the markets based on liquidity and structure. They're the key things I'm looking for. I'm looking to see how price reacts at key levels. Now, key levels for me are swing highs, swing lows, but also, weekly highs and lows as well tell us a lot because it's such a high time frame. Okay. The idea is we build a trade premise or a bias on the higher time frame. We decant that down onto the lower time frames. Now, I'm really just going to try and get through a lot of assets today. If you've got any specific questions, then please do ask me. I'm not going to make it too educational. I think, I kind of normally start these ones on a Monday with that because we haven't got our session on Wednesday. I think it would be good. I know I've been receiving a lot of messages from people asking about certain alts, as well as obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, and bits and pieces as well, even sort of traditional market assets like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. So if you've got any, let me know and we will take a look. So on here, quite simply, this was the swing high, right? I want to see how price engaged with this. All right, so when we closed above it, we noticed that we've got a nice amount of the body closing above this level. Long downside wick. We did have this slightly longer than I would have liked nose. So if you see this as like a pin bar candle, you'll often hear people say pin bar with a short nose. Yeah, so that's just a very small, upside wick. This one's slightly longer, so it shows that there was some pushback here. But ultimately what we're saying here is that we're bullish. Of course, we're bullish on a weekly scale. I mean, just look at the structure. It's still beautiful. I know people have been losing their minds over this pullback, but I mean, look at it. It really is minor compared to what you kind of read and see on social media. But anyway, we've got this weekly gap down here, and this for a while has been a key area of interest for me. Really love to see price kind of come back down into this gap and move off from here. But sometimes crypto is just too strong, like especially Bitcoin, right? So we want to always make sure we've got a plan for either way. So anyway, when price closes above this level, this then becomes an area of support, right? So you can move these and remark them, put them as green or something on your chart. So when you go to the lower time frames, you can see, okay, look, opportunities below this, are for buying until we do this. Big bearish engulfing candle closes back beneath this level. Now, why is that significant? Well, quite simply, if the buyers had stepped in here, and they definitely stepped in here, which drove price higher, ultimately price then opened here, drove even higher, what did it do? It took out the prior week's high, ultimately obviously closed below it and then back below this level as well. So my expectation was for price to push lower. So with this week, the opposite is true. We look for price to draw back towards this level, find resistance here, and then sell off. It's a very simple principle of liquidity because looking at on the higher time frames as well, you're looking at where people are basically in the most pain or where they're kind of caught offside. Skinny fire, of course I can, my friend. It's actually BC with you today, my friend. Adrian, or Crypto Bird, our wonderful talisman, will be on the live shows as well at some point. Let's just have a look. XLM, we certainly can. So quite simply, as we're looking at this now, till we kind of close back above here on a weekly scale, then I'm going to be targeting this high and ultimately the all-time high. But while we remain down here, then we have to remain a little bit cautious, all right? Now, I was looking for this low to be taken out here, right? We didn't take out the prior week, so which means that we have an inside week. So what does that mean? It means the high of this candle and the low of this candle, when you get a secondary candle close here within its range, so it doesn't exceed the low or the high, this becomes the inside bar pattern. We had one back here as well. That becomes the mother bar high, the mother bar low. What do? We treat it as a range. So what happened? We close outside of this, we push higher. We close back within it, we're looking to target the lows. So the low of this candle here is actually what forms the weekly gap as well. So that's why we have a lot of confluence down here. Something else that I'm interested in here as well is this low. All right, so just want to see if price is going to kind of range around in here, in which case we really could see some stuff come in and start to go quite well for alts. So what we're looking for in here is how's price reacting on a lower time frame. So we're going to drop down to a daily. And let's take a look at what price is telling us. That's when these lines are going to come into play. The last thing I want to cover is this candle here. This is a bearish candle, right? We've come off the back of a bearish engulfing candle, and now we have a bearish like an inverse hammer stroke pin bar medium nose on it, or almost a shooting star, but the nose kind of takes that out of play. However, we can see an area that was offering buying opportunities here is now backing selling opportunities quite aggressively. So I'm now just looking lower to say, okay, where do I think that the buyers are going to step back in? That's why this level is really key for me. Okay. And then when we're looking at this low here, this came in at 97.90.70. This one came in at 97.90. Oh, hang on a minute. Get that turned off. Some random call coming in. And we can see this one sat slightly higher. All right. So we were 98.20.18. So this makes the low that we're interested in, the swing point. Absolute ideal play from here would be something like this for me. Okay, run out all the liquidity below these lows, engage with this gap, and then push higher. That would drive price down into the high 80s. But ultimately, I think that can be a really, really good thing. I think it just flushes out the last of the market. People start to get super bearish. Then we catch the bids down here, and we all know what Bitcoin can do. It can just absolutely melt faces. So with the context that we've got from the weekly, let's take a look where we are on the daily. Do we have any key pivot points here or any key points of support and resistance? I mean, it's a little bit unclear here, but I tell you one thing that is interesting is this kind of region here, these upside wicks that ultimately gave way, and then we saw, this whole area act as support. If we look at these downside wicks here, if we make an allowance, say, for this, right, then we can see that we're really kind of in an area. Now, it's a bit of a large area here, right? But we've got resistance, price rips above, retests, buyers step in again. Now, obviously, this provides a really, really large area. So we're going to refine that on the lower time frame, right? But then as you look at this overall, you can kind of start to see this picture. I think if we started to get closes below this level, yes, I would obviously need to see a good close below this as well. Then I think we could go deeper. But ultimately, what I'm looking for here is a pretty sharp move lower, a quick recovery, and then us, to continue to the upside. However, let's get that off the chart for a moment and focus on these levels that I've got drawn here. So these are the key liquidity targets. Now, I posted the Bitcoin report yesterday for members, and I also shared an excerpt from that on Twitter as well, talking about this low being the first level at which I am willing to engage. Now, why is that? Because we've set the daily close here, so Sunday's candle, and look what happened. Price came down, took out the low, and then closed back above. So that's telling me there's at least some form of willingness from buyers in here, Or the other thing that's true is that people are taking profits here as well. So people that were short from up here or higher, are targeting these daily swing lows or swing points for profit taking. So that's something else that we need to take into account. Now, excuse me, the next key points here are the swing low at 92.556 and the swing low, which is down here. We know this is a weekly swing low, which is 92.273 flat. Now, for me, that's the really key area of interest here. And I think that, from a point of probability or looking at this in terms of liquidity, my earliest reversal point that I would expect, and it doesn't mean that I'm right, because price can absolutely just moon from here, right? Because we've taken some liquidity. So people have been trapped on the wrong side of the market. What I'm asking myself is, have we generated enough below this kind of internal swing low here for major players to take the other side of this bet? And I don't think so. I think a weekly level like this, or this one here, excuse me, it would ultimately be key. I think we run these and then we start inducing shorts at these levels, and we start tapping into this liquidity down here, which are going to be a load of market sell orders, then allows bigger players to step in, take, match those up with their bids, basically forego any form of slippage, get whatever kind of contract sizes that they want filled at a really, really good level, and then look to really, really kind of tear this market back up. Okay. However, we never want to marry a bias. We always want to go into each and every trading day, trading week, however, kind of whatever time frame you're looking on, with a battle plan for both directions. Right now, the reason for that is because price is very, very unpredictable. Ultimately, look, this massive scam candle here that was obviously the cause of huge manipulation. Just look at the candle. It was purely designed to take out liquidity from the low of the range here to the high of the range, And then basically price then just ground its way back up. Again, inducing a load of people to go long, late up here, and then, wiping them out as price kind of broke back down. Now, even allowing for this, which we have to do because these are the wicks that we've got, I did not expect price to just kind of catch a bid here. Why? Because even as we look at it on a daily scale, where's it really kind of running from? Now, what we need to consider in here is that we're in bullish structure, right? So ultimately, our bias kind of helped us here because it allowed us to stay with the trend. But normally what I'm looking for is for price to engage highs and lows for liquidity pools, all right? So giving a good example of this one here, what did we do? Well, we closed above it with this candle. Remember, nice big body candle. You hear me use terms like a strong close. By that, I mean a large body candle that shows a good volume of buyers stepping into the market. Price then gets acceptance above this level. You see a little bit of profit taking shown by the upside wick. So what do? Well, we target this level here for long setups, right? So we see price come in, close above, support, price pushes higher. So what happens when we lose this area, and we close? And I mean, it's a really, really aggressive sell-off, like they say with trading. You often see a staircase up and an elevator down, all right? That's how quick these things can sell off. However, when we close back below, this then became a really key area of interest for me as well, because we hadn't retested the underside of this. However, we also hadn't with this one, all right? Which is why we have to make an allowance. This wasn't retested, right? Price nosed above it here, wicked above it. Then we got this strong close above it, but we never retested it. So when price came back below, this gives us a really interesting pivot point in terms of liquidity to see price retrace to here and look for sells. Now, same happened on the weekly scale, right? We had this level when we got back underneath. What did we look for? We closed underneath. And if you go back and look on Twitter, you can see how I said, let's look at this level here, which is 99,518. For good sells, right? Because ultimately, as you break the lower time frames down, when price starts to climb back up, people want the markets to be bullish, right? People want to be longing stuff. People want to just be throwing a few dollars into account and watching everything go parabolic. It's one of the best feelings in the world. However, what the true market players do, your institutional players, your central banks, your hedge funds, your major players, is they're relying on that, right? They're relying on that psychological edge to understand where people are most likely to want to buy it and where they're most likely want to sell, pushing price into those areas and ultimately taking them in the opposite direction until the market just steps into a phase that's so bullish. Yeah, like we see back here when we really kind of broke out from these levels here. Yeah, these highs particular, we had all of these untapped highs down here. Look at the momentum when we broke through that and then price just really, really ripped. Okay, so until we're in that phase, when we're consolidating, we need to remember that price, I think, ranges around about 70% of the time, right? So we're not in trends as often as most people think we are. So then it becomes a game of liquidity. Shazcoin, hello from Thailand. Wonderful. Very, very dear friend of mine moved out there years ago and has absolutely never looked back. So that's where we are. So why have I got kind of an intraday long bias here? Because we're holding above this level. We've taken that liquidity. What would I like to see? Well, there's not really a key area up here. I mean, there's a very, very thin gap here that price could target, but ultimately we could just, look to be targeting something very, very simple like prior day's high, or Saturday's high, Sunday's high. Maybe we do come up for this gap, but either way, I think wherever that does come in, whether it's here from these highs, whether it's further up from here, and we'll look at it on the 4 hour as well, I do think something like this could be possible. But I do also think that a lot of people are looking for this, right? And by its very nature, if a lot of people are looking for it, the levels become a little bit more obvious. Sometimes these things can be front run, but I really do think that we could see a liquidity sweep lower. And hello from Puerto Rico. How are you doing? Let's see. Wonderful place. Really desperate to get out there. A beautiful sloth sanctuary and, get some diving done off Cocos Island and stuff like that. Some amazing, amazing adventures to be had out that part of the world. So before my mind wanders any further, let's clear this up just a little bit. And let's just quickly look at this on the 4 hour, and then we're going to look at it on the hourly as well. Again, let's take a look at the candles here. We've got our key level. Price has drawn down. Now, look at the indecision here in these candles. You've got, this is kind of a very skinny pin bar candle. You know, it's almost kind of a hybrid between that and a doji. This is a doji. This is a doji. This is the candle that kind of got me interested, right? So this is our 8 a.m. candle, closed at midday just before the show. This is much nicer. This has got a really good body on it, this, right? So again, if I'm looking at this and saying, okay, well, what is price doing here? Let's never forget about our gaps as well, guys, right? These are really, really important. So we've got our H4 gap here, because this can give us some good information. Ultimately, this has rejected price once, twice, thrice, or 3 times here, right? Now, this candle here tells me that price wants higher. Why? Because a longer downside wick, again, testing into this level, showing that buyers are willing to step in at this level. You know, 93.529 flat is a good level at the moment. If we close above this, and we're not going to know that until 1600 UTC or London time, then ultimately this would be my target here to the upside, initial target. All right, now remember what we're talking about. Let's not forget what we were just discussing on the daily, that we're ultimately expecting, or not expecting is the wrong term, but we're very, very open to this idea that price could be moving higher before rejecting lower. All right, however, what we want to do is allow ourselves to operate you know, with some flexibility in and around these levels, because what we're saying is, let's not just automatically try and short this. Let's see what price tells us when it gets there, right? Let's see what it does when it gets to this high. Do we get that strong close above it? Because look at this, right? You know, look at this here, this level. You know, we don't need to overcomplicate this. Price ran into this level. It's a high time frame level, yes, but also as an H4 level. Look at these wicks. What's telling you about these wicks that the price wants to go lower? Nothing. You want to see a body close below here, and then you want to see this area retested and then price to move lower. For example, this was the swing low that we had here, along with no, that's lower than that actually. So is it? Let's have a look. So that was actually in 94.177 flat, 94.177 flat. So we had equal lows there, all right, which again, really, really key liquidity pool. But if I'm focusing mainly, you know, on the swing lows as well, let's draw this out as an adjoined area and say, okay, if we put them in there, and in fact, just to make this stand out a little bit clearer, let's do it like this. Then what we can say is we can say, okay, well, that's really interesting, because what happened here? Yeah, obviously buyers stepped in here. We can see again, we had another touch point here as price moves up. So that's incorporating the swing low and then the equal lows here as an area. Price then drove into this and failed to close below. You saw some buyers stepping in here, or some profit being taken, or probably a little combination of both. Then we saw the strong close below. Then we look to this area to be retested, and we see if we get our short triggers, which ultimately we did. Now, a slight caveat here is with this close, we'd also taken key liquidity from the lows, so we would be a little bit cautious here. But ultimately, until we close above this level, then, you know, look at market structure, right? Lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower low. So until we get above this level here, which is about 95.742, then we're still in a bearish structure. So we have to respect market structure. However, the kind of contrast to that is, it doesn't mean that it's just going to happen like that right away. Price could run really high here, you know, then wick down below this level and sell off. But if we start closing above this level, we have this 4-hour gap drawing price higher, and then the swing higher that's over here. So that for me is a really, really simple play here on Bitcoin. I think if we start to see strength stepping in here, also kind of strange, we're right towards the end of the year. We've got today, tomorrow, New Year's Eve. Then, you know, coming into January, we need to remember as well that we've got Trump's inauguration happening in January, that some are really seeing as this kind of big event that could really lead to a resurgence for risk assets. So something I do just want to cover very quickly, something I always have my eye on here, is what's happening with the equity markets as well, right? So if we just go on to our main contract here with the NASDAQ, we can see here, nice little example of how price is grinding higher. It's interesting, actually. I thought we kind of come back up. We ultimately filled that gap here, right? But obviously price gapped, opened up here. We saw this really, really, really big sell-off here just after kind of mid-December point. Price grounded its way back up, and now is kind of breaking down again. Ideally, the reason we're kind of looking at these risk markets, apart from the fact that I trade them, is that it's kind of gauging the market's appetite for risk here. All right, but we can see also that we've got, you know, a relatively flat dollar here, which is just kind of holding up range highs. Bond markets are down a bit, but ultimately a little bit flat overall. So, you know, there's not a very, very clear read on that. Something I try and do is kind of look at traditional markets like that and see what it's telling us in terms of the market's appetite for risk. So here we go. Might actually get to see this play out live here. So like we said, bullish off the back of this candle here. Ultimately, this gap was rebalanced here. So we don't expect this to offer resistance at this point because we've wicked through it. That's why we're expecting expansion to this high and also this area of resistance. However, I'm not actively trading today. I'm not actually going to be actively trading probably until around about the 2nd of January. So I've loaded up on some good spot bags. I've increased some of my investment positions. But as this stands at the moment, I really want to see what price does here. All right, so let's see how we get and what we get for that 4-hour close. Looking at this a little bit more granularly, right, on the hourly scale, look at just this mass consolidation. This isn't uncommon to see this of a weekend, right? Especially bearing in mind that, you know, Sunday we had price come in, Saturday night we had that run up, Saturday evening, Sunday early morning. Again, we're just looking to see what the candles tell us. Right, this was the key high here. Nothing about this made me want to buy it. We came back down, closed below, getting nothing but kind of bearish price action coming into here. Ultimately, what happens? We lose the structure down here. We lose this low as well. But remember, like we said about, you can look at these kind of areas. You say, okay, swing low here, both of these untapped. We're drawing this across as an area of potential resistance. When we close below it like we do here, we want to kind of target these areas for short setups, all right? You won't always get them, and in crypto can be a real pain in the backside for that as well, because you sometimes don't get these retests. But at the moment, what we've seen is this flush come through into Sunday. Monday, markets have opened. We're now heading into New Year. Obviously, traditional markets are back open now, which is good because we can realign with those. But ultimately, you know, I don't want to pay too much attention to this here on the hourly, because the 4-hour has a much cleaner level, and we always want to pay homage, for want of a better term, to the higher time frame. So I want to see a 4-hour close above this, and then I think we can start probing into this gap up here and ultimately higher up. We can also see on a 4-hour, yeah, that key high there. Prices came up, didn't it? Just came back down below. Can't get any action above it. It's just selling off. You can see the buyers trying to force this higher here. Yeah, long downside wick. Price comes all the way down here, forced all the way back up. Another one here. That's actually a beautiful kind of hammer candle, right? You'd want to see that above resistance. Then we get the bearish engulfing. Then we ultimately get the sell-off. All right. So we're just going to apply those same principles and also look on the lower time frames to see if we get any clear kind of support and resistance. For me here, one other thing that's quite interesting is, let's see if we've got, or what we've got running from this. Yeah, so that's not without note, right? So that's just that swing low there, touch point here, price came back in and found support of this area here. So that could be just adding a little bit of confluence in here as to why we're kind of seeing this bounce. The other thing is, you know, just playing devil's advocate here, is if so many people are waiting for this flush lower, this really could be a good place for this to catch a bid. So we're just going to remain open. All right, 4-hour close above here, would consider building some positions, but just kind of targeting local highs until we really kind of step back inside that structure. And then we want to see that structure regained on the daily, etc. I hate it here. How are you doing, my friend? I hope you had a lovely Christmas. So, I mean, that's where we are, right? I think it's just simple as that. Run this high, get back down below. Remember, we haven't quite run this high yet either. Want to see price run this, and then let's see what the 4-hour candle gives us in way of commitment. Close above, we look for higher. Come back down below, then we're much more open to kind of shorting these down into these lower wicks here, and ultimately the key high time frame levels. All right. So let's move across onto ETH, shall we? And then we're going to take a look at Solana. We're going to take a look at Altcoin, XLM as well. If you've got anything else you want me to take a look at, please do let me know. So let's take a look with our fam over at BitGet, shall we? Get this open on a weekly scale. Let's see if we've got anything on here that we can clear up. So where are we here on a weekly scale? Now, actually, ETH's kind of come up into this key level up here. Again, look at the wicks here. Price came up, initial rejection, leaving. I think this actually left equal or relative equal highs, didn't it? That's in at 87, at 92. Yeah, so that did. I remember that actually. You've got equal highs here. That got run. Obviously, big sell-off here. Then again, we've seen very similar to Bitcoin. The close of the weekly candle here gives us an inside week. Now, if anybody's interested, by the way, in learning about the inside bar pattern, I've got a post tagged. Tag's not the right word, is it? Pinned to the top of my Twitter account, BC_Richfield. You can go on there, take a look, and it will guide you through how you can trade the inside bar pattern. Ultimately, we're looking at as a range, with the ultimate range high being here and here, and this forming a secondary range within this one. So what does it stand for? Well, quite often it's showing indecision in the market, right? So what do you get? Here we have an inside week. Yeah, that's the mother bar. This is the inside bar. So what happened? The next day it expands to the high here. Yeah, takes the high of the mother bar. And then when you get back within the mother bar, you're then targeting the mother bar low. Very simple range trading principles, all right? We had another inside bar pattern here, right? Mother bar high, mother bar low. Yeah, so what happened? This confirms the inside bar. Price runs the low, and then we expect expansion to the high. Look at what this candle did, right? And then look at your other liquidity pools here as well, like this swing high, for example. Huge close above this, meaning that this area here becomes absolutely ripe for retest longs. And we still haven't retested that, by the way. So I'm not saying we are going to go down to 2.8 again on ETH as well anytime soon, but I am going to leave that on the chart there because that was a key high. Price had really strong expansion through that. Any retest of this area, especially with any sharp moves down into it, can present some potentially good buying opportunities. So we're going to leave that there. We also have this untested bullish gap. So that's telling us that there's confluence around this area for the buyer. And in terms of structure, we would still be, holding bullish structure here as well. So on a weekly scale, that's a little bit far away. So you're like, yeah, okay, BC, that's great. But we're absolutely nowhere near that at the moment. So we're going to move down to the lower time frame here. We're going to move down to the daily to get a little bit more context. And we can see in here as well that we're running a daily inside bar pattern, with this being the main range in play. We've not taken any notable liquidity below these lows because they're all just stacked slightly higher than one another. So if I'm looking for this for any form of confluence at the moment, I'm saying, okay, well, if price is bullish here, where's it most likely to run? We've got no gaps in here drawing price higher on the daily. We've got this swing high here and this swing high here. Yeah, so that's making these relative equal highs, right? This one here and this one here. That's a really, really strong draw on liquidity here. So I think a good target is 3,545. Now we need to remember on a daily scale, we are bearish in here. If we've got any doubts about that, we can use the B Pro trailer as well, right? Obviously lots more features of our in-house indicator as well, but I really do like the trailer here. It's telling us on a daily scale, we moved bearish over here. All right, so this is when price came in, ultimately tested this area for selling, and we still haven't flipped that in the same way that tests of the bullish trailer present really good buying opportunities as well. However, we also look to market structure as well, which is a really, really key feature. And for me here, after a really big drop like this, we're asking the question of, are we setting a lower high here as well? Because look, we came up higher high, higher low, higher high just, then we get a lower low set. Is this now the lower high before price, comes back down? So at the moment, it's a little bit neutral, but obviously it is leaning bearish. So this could be the draw to the upside. What could be the potential draw to the downside? Well, we've got a few, right? The really kind of clear and obvious ones that stand out are here and also here. All right, so that's 3,102 and then 3,217. But we also have another swing low here, which is at 3,305. What's interesting about this is also the mother bar low of our inside bar pattern. So, any run of this low, I think, could be a really good liquidity pool to look to get into longs. As it kind of stands, price is just kind of in a little bit of no man's land here. I'd want to be looking for buying opportunities here, selling opportunities here, strong closes above this, looking for retests to buy, strong closes below this, looking for retests to sell. All right, and then we're looking at those levels. So let's just take a look at the 4 hour and see if we've got anything that's any clearer in here. Well, we can see that we've suffered an initial rejection here at this high, and look how clean that is. We haven't troubled this high over here yet, so that doesn't obviously disclude its potential significance. But this is what I mean when we come into these levels, yeah? Taking the swing higher, we can see price really kind of came back here. Now, what's happened here? Price has probed into the level again, can't close above, can't close above. Now, look how we're getting the retest in here at the moment for price to move lower. It's just failed to gain acceptance above here. So for me, while I'm looking at this price action, although this looked semi-promising, yes, it's a bearish close on the candle, but ultimately we saw some real buyers stepping in here. This, for me, is kind of favoring a move a little bit lower here. However, look at what structure's done here. Lower high, but a higher low, yeah? Then price is setting a higher high. So again, it's all a little bit unclear here, but I would kind of be targeting this gap at the moment. So again, really kind of a day looking at the H4 gaps, right? And we look at the same on Bitcoin. I think price coming down to, I think this is going to tell us a lot. I think, at the moment, I'd be favoring intraday shorts down to here, although I would be conscious that in just under an hour's time, we have the pre-equity market is opening, like for the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, which is 8:30 US time, or actually 1:30 our time here in the UK. So that can, provide a nice injection of volatility. But at the moment, if I was to take any side of this market, just based on structure, I'd be looking for this, or I would be looking for price to give me a strong close through this, a bearish close, meaning that this would be an inverted gap. This would change to purple. And then ultimately what we'd be looking for here, a pullbacks to here to sell lower. Yeah, ultimately to this low, but our higher time frame lows down here as well. So that's a really kind of clear plan of action here for ETH, all right? How I would look to kind of execute that, well, I would already, want to have taken a position here, right, up at this level. I think I like the 5 minute for crypto. I think it's a really good entry time frame. You can get really, really chopped up if you're moving into lower time frames. But even this isn't really the cleanest short here, right? Because you've got bullish gap here as well. We can see the rejections in here, but this really could just be correcting down to a key level. If we take our Fibonacci, yeah, we're just engaging with this 50% of the level now, meaning that the risk to reward is now on the side of the buyers because, we've got a good R to R. I do like the kind of golden pocket area between here, the 705 and the 0.75, which is just the quarter level of the range. You often see good reactions as well. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But like I said, nothing's panning out particularly clear. If I want to be shorting into this, I would have wanted to take this short here. That's the cleanest one that sets up for me on here. And let me explain to you why. I like taking inversion plays for setups. And what I want to see is a swing failure. So we have key resistance level here. Yeah. So let me just make that a bit thicker so we can look. So we're getting rejections from here. We can see it back here. Price has got underneath and now is retesting this. So if I want to be short here, then I'm looking for a sweep of a high and then price to break down. And I want to see one of two things. So I want to see the swing failure is a must. And we can see that we've got that there. Let me just make that a randomly bright color so that it just kind of, well, I was hoping it would stand out above it, but there we go, purple. So we've got our swing failure. What's that? Here's the swing higher, price comes up, closes back beneath, shows us that initial stage of weakness. So then what we're looking for here is we're saying, how does price react at the swing low, which is this? We draw that across here, price closes below, again, really not showing it any form of respect, draws back. We can enter on this candle here with our stops above this high here, or ultimately you could put it above one of these two highs if you were more risk averse. Why is that so much more appealing? Well, Also, if I was to take the inversion setup, I would have been in on this candle, right? But this is a little bit of a safer way to do it, and then look for the pullback, the confirmation. It shows you the weakness. But for me, price can't really reverse before here or here. Yeah, because we're running down. We've got a small gap down here that I'm not particularly worried about. This gap here, this is why I'd be worried about shorting this. Big bullish gap, big bullish gap. Yes, these levels can be filled very quickly, but what I like to see is more balanced price action to run into. Yeah, I'm looking for more lows than gaps. And what we can see here, I'm just going to draw this in to show you the significance of this. Yeah, big bullish gap here, big bullish gap here. All right, so if I'm looking to go lower with these, then I've got to contend with these here, right? However, as I look over here, I've got a little bit of a bullish gap here, but this one, as we see as we draw it across, was rebalanced here. So I don't have to worry about that, meaning if I go short here, really the key things I'm looking for price to run into are these levels. Yeah, ultimately price kind of responds a little bit. I don't want to say a nothing area here, but where price is responding here is this. This is the consolidation that led to this big pump higher, okay? So that's where price is reacting. But look, it just gave us a much cleaner trade to the downside, all right? Yes, I expect this to draw lower, exactly as I explained earlier, but it doesn't mean that I'm just willing to kind of jump into a trade. I need to see some triggers and some confluence in there as well. So that's why I would be, as explained, short bias here, intraday on ETH at the moment, but let me pop back to a 4 hour quickly here as well. But as we discussed here, right, we've still got this in play. Just quickly, just while I'm looking at this, if we do rebalance this gap here, and I am a little bit worried about this one here, one thing I would say is these levels here, especially this one being a gap low, excuse me, you know, that's not been retested here. So when you start getting these closes here and these areas start to get probed, then these can be the good short entries here and here, right? Because you know where you're wrong. You're wrong if price comes back above here. But yeah, I assume that we'll just see these filled really quickly with a sharp move down. Then we want to see how price reacts at this low. But ultimately, just not really clean enough for me to take an entry here. And also, like I said, I'm not actively trading this at the moment. I'm just looking to kind of add to my investment positions. Mammoth, hello, mate. One of our wonderful Bird Nest members. OGSMH, hello to you as well, my friend. Mr. Max Ty, BTC, sell now. I will ask it, mate, and hopefully it will give us an answer, but often it's a tricky little bugger. So I hate it. Here, let's have a look. Would love to see your thoughts on Pendle. Not sure if you try for future targets. I tried to measure with Fib extension. What's the correct way to apply it? And is it something that works? Yeah, sure. So it can be a really interesting point. Just before we run through the others, guys, if you have got anything else you want me to check, we've got about 15 minutes left in the show. Please do let me know. We're still going to run through Solana, Telcoin, or Solana, Tel, and XLM as well. But I am just going to take a look at this because this is maybe something that can be of use for you guys as well when looking at extensions. All right. And I'm just going to show you what I do using standard deviations. Right, so let's just take a look at this. So PNDLA. So just take a little bit of a look at this, right? So on a weekly scale, again, we just want to apply the same kind of principles here. Once again, look, take your key higher. Price breaks above, look for this area for longs. If it fails, when it closes below, look to this area to flip, and then we look for shorts. Now we're looking for the next swing low, which is here. We can see that price tried to drive below that, but actually got bought up quite nicely. So now this looks like this wants a little bit of bullish resurgence higher. So I'm still interested in this level because that was the area that the key selling happened. And then obviously this above here as well. So on a weekly scale, that's pretty clean. I think as long as we're holding above this, I think price is looking to push a little bit higher. One thing that we are obviously contending with that we need to allow for on these higher time frames here is looking at the prior week's high. Okay, where are we here? PWH. So the high of the prior week. That's what price is running into at the moment. And we need to remember again, we'll see a lot of them at the moment. We're in this weekly inside bar pattern. This high is the mother bar. mother bar low. This becomes our inside bar range. So we could be looking to run this and then break down to the lows. So let's see what the daily has as well. Led Fuard, hello, my friend. That is an exciting formation coming out of a cup and handle and a flag channel now, looking for low swing longs. Wonderful. Let's take a little look at it, shall we? Sounds like you've got some good TA going on that, mate. So let's take a little look and see what we can get in with. So prior week's highs here, as we can see, this is what we're currently battling with. So we want to be aware of that on a daily scale. Again, we can see this swing high here, but also this swing higher. Well, you can see prices had a little bit of a row with these already, right? So prices come in, yeah, that before, obviously, this was the swing high that was set. So price came into this swing higher, failed to close above it. Then failing to do so and closing this candle, set this swing higher. That happened to also be the high of week, right, from last week. Now price is running that high again, quite simply on a daily scale. I think if we start getting a close above this, I'm a little bit concerned about this high as well. To be honest, the price action's a little bit difficult here because we've got gaps coming in here. This has kind of been rebalanced. This high is going to play a big part. Really, the safest play here would be to wait for a bullish close above both of these, and then wait to see if we get a retest of this area here to then build some long positions higher. Let's take a look just to see. Yeah, because again, if we failed this, especially if we came underneath this with a decent wick, I think then we're looking to kind of run out these lows down here. But we can see ultimately the price is kind of, you know, in this sort of consolidation area here. Time to be long was down here. Time to be short is probably more up here unless we start getting good closes above. This is a little bit internal, but I think the daily will give us our best read here again. So I'd like to see a close above both these levels. Until then, you know, we've seen rejections here previously, so that's probably a little bit more likely. Maybe the 4 hour gives us a little bit anyway. Let's have a look, shall we? Yeah, I mean, nice structure here on the 4 hour, very balanced, respecting the gaps. Again, you know, when we're looking at these kind of lows, this is a really good example, actually. So you see we get this swing low and then price closes below and you think, okay, maybe we're looking to retest this area for shorts. This should have you a little bit concerned, or two things should. One is the long downside wick there. And you can just see the fact that we're reacting at this bullish gap, right? So when price comes back above, then when you get a move like this, yes, it's spiked out the high here, but it's closed above. Now what I'm looking for is for price to chase down this high. Right, on a 4 hour scale, that's the next key liquidity. So all of a sudden we can see that although price is bullish here, there's a lot of kind of resistance built overhead, right? So I think that's the thing to do. But anyway, if you're looking in terms of targeting, I always favor targeting the swing highs, swing lows, and then being very observant of the gaps as well. But if I was to look to do this, right, in terms of looking for higher targets, what I would do is I would take my Fibonacci and I would look at the immediate manipulation leg. So what's a manipulation leg? Well, it's the move down, the price snatches liquidity before it moves structure higher. Yeah. So this was the move down, reacted the bullish gap, swept liquidity below this low before price is now looking to move higher. It did that and it took out this high with this candle. So I want to measure this move. Yeah. But I want to measure the low to the high. So I'm going to just hang my Fibonacci here on this low. Then I'm going to move it to this high. Yeah, so that low to that high. Why? Because that's the move lower that took liquidity. And then I'm going to move and put my standard deviations on. All right. Then typically I'm targeting, you know, between 2 and 2.5. So I added a 2.25 level. All right. That's that kind of initial target, and then extensions up to 4. Now, I know this isn't necessarily commonplace for most people, but I find this, you know, I find this quite reliable. So I don't know if this has worked or not on this leg, but to give you an example of it heading in the other direction, that's the leg that swept liquidity. That's the low. That's the high. So if I'm looking to project targets down to see if they align, because look, I'm not just aiming at that. What I'm looking for is, are there targets that are confluent with that? So if I want 2.25, well, this swing high here that's within this gap, that then becomes my target if I'm looking for that. All right. Obviously not allowing for the fact that we have all this resistance overhead, but this is the manipulation leg high. So because I'm moving down, I want to take this from the high to the low of the move. Yeah. So if I do it like this, I go from the high to the low. I haven't really drawn that in the best place, have I? But we can see here that this is the 2.25. Yeah, and this is the 2.5, 2.2. Is there anything within this range? Yeah, this low. So that would be my target. We can see we came pretty close to the 4 as well for the extension here. So that's something that you can play around with just to give you the settings for that. Yeah, I've got that set on reverse. And then apart from that, it's really, really simple. I'm setting a 0, a 0.5, a 1, a 2, a 2.25, 2.5, and a 4. And all that's going to do is that's just going to project those levels for me in terms of standard deviations. Just really kind of helps, especially if you're, when price sets new all-time highs, or if it's in price discovery and you don't have those higher targets, nicely mapped out for you. So let's just clear that up for a minute. But that's kind of where I am. I think, look, there's a lot of resistance overhead here. We move back to the daily for a moment. We can see here. So again, I think seeing a close above these, I know it seems like a long way away, I think would be the most bullish thing here. Apart from that, do see it running into a lot of congestion here. And then on the 4 hour, we can see now we're back in this key area. These are nice bullish candles, long downside wicks, barely any upside wicks, good strong bodies, showing you that price is just looking to move higher. So that's where I would monitor that from. But ultimately, this was the place to be long, because then we can long intraday into these liquidity targets higher. This for me is setting up much more likely for short positions if we get them as well. Let's take a look anyway. Sorry, I missed a couple of questions, and then we're going to kind of rip through these last few targets. Hopefully I hate it there. That made some sense. Anyway, we're going to move on to Sol quickly, and then we're going to run through TEL, XLM, and then we're going to look at Theta for our friend here, Led Fouad, which I'm sure I'm absolutely murdering in terms of a name. So hopefully nothing too offensive. Let's take a look at Solana here. Let's pop this back onto our weekly. And let's see what we've got going on. So, Sol did invert this gap here, right? Bullish gap. We'd expect that to offer support. Ultimately, we kind of peaked at the end of it here, meaning that this area now is more likely to represent resistance than support, all right? The other really interesting thing here is this. Key swing high, look how price ripped through that. We never got a retest. So when you see price come into these areas, you really want to be watching here to see if you get that kind of nice reaction, yeah? So whether you're a position trader, whether you're someone that likes to leave levels, you normally want to see quite a sharp move into these untested levels. But what you don't want to see is this. You don't want to see this big body close below it, because then, you guessed it, this becomes resistance. And that gave us some pretty reasonable shorts here. But, price kind of opened here. We've got the close. Price is now opening, probing back into this area. So we want to see price back above this. Then there's not really too much kind of stopping price until we get, to the high here at 264. If I'm looking at this, getting ahead of myself, we're looking at this now on the daily. Perfect. Awesome. Cheers, mate. Remembering some of my French lessons maybe from when I was a boy. So the key high here, again, look at the close above. Wasn't retested, right? But then look at how price came into it. When it came into this level with some speed, look, we got that initial buy up. Then you saw price coming into it here. And then we've really kind of struggled. And now the level's just kind of almost acting as this like point of control. Price is just kind of sticking to it, right? So we need something to come in quite clean here. And as it stands, we're not really getting it. It's a little bit similar, right? We're kind of seeing price kind of held in a bit of a range here. We've got a key swing low below us. We've got a swing low developing above us, but it hasn't set yet. We still need the daily close here. That swing high, yeah, it's another swing high here. Really, really similar, actually, making that equal highs to what we were just kind of looking at over on that Pendle, right? You've got these kind of equal highs setting up here. You've got the low here. Very, very tricky. It's kind of just in the middle of no man's land a little bit here for me. One thing I'm interested in, though, is looking at this to see where we are. We put our levels on here. Yeah, so we've got the 0.75 level, which is often good for a bounce here. But again, this kind of whole area, you've got the golden pocket heading down to the 0.79. we can see how price is kind of stuck here, maybe looking for a little bit of a resurgence. So that's definitely not unheard of. What do you think Sol will be end of Q1? I really don't know, mate. And I tell you what, I know a lot of good friends of mine that get in a lot of trouble for making kind of predictions about where price will be. What I try and do, my friend, is I try and trade it level to level. I'm not somebody that kind of sets out really, really big projections and targets, but I do think that if everything aligns, Q1 should be really, really bullish for crypto. There's some factors that means that it might not be, and we'll be prepared both ways regardless. But I would say that, it seems to me like this really big, the sell-off that we've had recently is what everyone's been waiting for. And I think when, markets really come back to life, beginning of January, when Trump is kind of sworn in and all of that kind of stuff happens, we could really see some super bullish conditions. But again, we have to know there's so much stuff that can happen between now and then. But I think Sol can do really, really well. I think, probably a little bit undervalued compared to some of the others. We didn't really see that massive run from it. Just quickly, another level that I'm concerning myself with here is this, right? Because look what happened. That was what we wanted to be key support here. Big wick, what happened? Close below, daily comes through, retest this area, get a beautiful short off the back of it. Has been rejected here again, moving down. But something that's kind of, it's not all doom and gloom. When we look at these kind of rising, higher low, this is showing some kind of compression in here. So we want to see again how we kind of break out of this. And for me, I'm just looking to kind of be, if we close above this here, I think then I'm looking to be a buyer. If we get back below this level again, then I think we're going to start hunting down and targeting some of these liquidity levels to the downside. Let's just take a look at the 4 hour. Again, we can just see price, kind of ranging around in here. I really don't do this often. I really don't consider myself an expert in it, but it's something that I do study. We can see if we take this consolidation here with the volume profile, price is exactly back at its point of control here. Look at it offering the support and resistance flips locally. We can see we reclaim the value area low here, stepping back inside the range. We can see that we tag the value area high here, leading to this sell-off. Now, what that just gives me here is a little bit more confidence that we're trapped below here and we've seen a range rejection from the highs. So while price might seem bullish, and we have, look, we've come through, we set a higher high now. Is this the higher low before price pushes up? We're dealing with very, very small kind of areas here to operate in. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if we got a close above here, realistically, we can only long with any, you're never certain, but you've got confidence to be longing into these highs. At the moment, we just want to trade this level to level. And this is kind of giving me slightly bearish vibes here, which might sound weird, but we've seen a range high rejection. We've seen the value area high rejected. And we're also struggling to get above, this swing high. So first thing I would want to see is an H4 close above here. This area to be retested, low time frame, long setups higher. This close here, I know we've got 3 hours to go, but if this really starts to push down a little bit and gives me a bearish hammer candle here, I wouldn't be against kind of dropping to the lower time frames here and looking for potential short setups into these lows. All right. Again, there's a lot that we would need to factor in here. Price ultimately looks a little bit, looks okay here, reacting at this bullish gap. Is this the higher low before we push higher? That's what we need to see confirmed by this high. So I think the most likely rejection high is still this one and these ones above. But if we really start to show weakness here, there's a chance that price is, already looking to drop here on Solana. But again, we don't want to kind of get caught up too much in the low time. Look at your daily. Daily's just a little bit of a mess. Wait for your closes above here for price to push up or for liquidity to be kind of swept below these lows down here. So let's take a look at Tell, shall we? Oh, excuse me. So what we can see here, what we were looking at, right? Back down again. Yes, they're larger areas. This will hopefully start to make a little bit more sense. But let's just, for now, let's just get that set up in its own little group. I imagine that will be H4, but we'll take a little look at that. So what are we seeing here? Quite simply, just exactly what I've been talking to you about before, right? We had these key wick highs here, and we can see what happened. Prices running into these areas, just rejection, support. What happened? Closed below this key area, also closed below this key swing low. What happened? Closed below it, looking at this area to short where? From this bearish gap and also from this kind of rejection area. Yes, it's big, But ultimately, for that level of clarity, I'm not just looking to then short it on the daily. I then move to a lower time frame to short it. And, that low time frame, that bias has worked pretty well for us so far here. Now, I'm always full exposure and honest about this. I'm not derivatives trading this. I am position trading this. And in fact, I think, here, Chris brought this to our attention right back at the beginning of the year, right? So we've really held some kind of nice accumulation positions in this as it's been moving higher. And again, I'm just kind of treating these dips as buying opportunities. I really kind of want to see this low taken down here, which is 0.004561. Would love to kind of buy a little bit more here if I get the opportunity. But looking at this from a TA perspective, I need to see price at least back above this. This is the key low. This is what's capping the market at the moment. We start getting closes above here. And what I would bring into this as well are these highs. So let's put these together as another little group. And let's just look at it from a naked chart perspective for a moment, right? So, excuse me, this is the low. That was our real kind of key point of interest. Closed below this here, came back into it. This is the area we were looking for rejection. Also, this bearish gap, that's now been rebalanced. So if I'm making an allowance for that low, and then I want to see these highs as well, I'm not as concerned about that high here, but what I would kind of look at here is probably this area. Right, this is the area I want to see price back above. I think we get back above here, and I think we can push higher. Ultimately, we do have to be a little bit concerned about that as well, right? Or not concerned, but we want to still factor that in. Like I said, I would be bidding down here. In fact, I'm going to go and set some limit orders in case we do kind of get a little rush on this level down lower. Price, I think, hasn't quite snuck into this bullish gap down here as well, so there is a little bit of confluence lower down. As for these lows, well, quite simply, we've got, depends, if that candle closes, if we get the daily close on that candle, then I think we want to see how price engages with this level if we come to here. If not, then for me, this is the next kind of key point of liquidity. We can see as we look across, you've kind of got a support area coming in here where price has kind of wicked into here and hasn't managed to close below this. But I think this is just a little bit cleaner for me here. Looking at this on the 4 hour, we can see price kind of just grinding its way down here. We do, I think, if we try and get this on like a line of best fit, or maybe, no. I mean, possibly this, right? It just doesn't really look that clean for me in the higher. So resistance, 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 deviation, price underneath and selling off. I like to see those a little bit cleaner than that, to be honest. It has to have real kind of purposeful meaning for me to kind of look at those diagonals. However, one thing that does kind of stand up here is we can see this low back here was run and closed above. Ultimately, these lows were taken out as well. And that's kind of acting a little support base down here for price at the moment. So maybe we do get this and it builds in here to move a little bit higher. Again, there's not really... if I was being super aggressive with this, would I look for longs from here? Yeah, I think when we kind of start running into levels like this and you get this close above, this nice bullish engulfing here, it tells you that price probably wants a little bit higher here, but a lot more so on an intraday basis. We need to see how price kind of reacts at this higher here. But again, as long as we hold these levels, intraday especially, then price is more likely to push higher than lower. We come back down and start closing below this here, and that very much brings 0.004561 into play, and also this via this swing low here, which is at 0.004742. Let's take a look at XLM. It's just an absolute rocket ship. So it's held here really nicely within this big bullish gap, but we can see it doesn't really give us anything, right, in terms of that. So we're going to need to move down to a daily. And where are we on a daily scale? Well, actually, this is really interesting here because this had been supporting price for a while. Yeah, let's just do that slightly thicker. Yeah, key swing low, nice bullish reaction, retest, long. Ultimately, this was the swing high. Price closed above it. We failed to get the retest, closed back below. And now we're kind of back below this level. This level is now very much resistance, all right? Not the cleanest thing in the world. Got the close back below here. Price tried to get closed back above. Now it's closed back below here. Very, very messy, to be honest, from a price action perspective. But this is the kind of key area that I'm looking at for resistance, as well as this here. right? That swing low, price closed below. This is, resistance until proven otherwise. And this would be our kind of downside target here. Yeah, it's actually pretty clear there on a daily, right? Nice daily structure on the way down, rejecting at key levels. Let's see what the 4 hour tells us here. So we're seeing just a tiny little bit of support here from this swing low. So I think coming into this level here, we can see support, prices climb back above. So it looks like it's kind of found a little bit of a kind of temporary base here and price could want to move forward. So while I wouldn't be willing to long this because we still need to get above here and here, if we close below this, and especially below this swing low, then ultimately the next clear and obvious target is 0.3126. All right. So we want to just hold above this swing low. We want to start climbing up, getting above here, getting above this swing high. Then we can start maybe looking at some potentials to kind of long up into these highs here. But ultimately, if this starts to really look heavy and close back below these levels, I think we're looking for a flush shorter here on XLM. All right. Joe, you're very welcome, mate. I hope it was helpful. So let's take a look at Theta now. For our friend Ledfrard. What are we on? Take a look at the Bybit contract, shall we? I'm sure we've got a nice bit of data on here. Yes, we do. Okay, so I believe, my friend, you were saying that there's like a nice hourly and 4 hour channel heading down here. So I don't know if you're looking for like a rising one. I'm not really somebody that uses the channels that much, but or maybe you're kind of looking at this one here. I mean, what I would say is that there's a little bit of a trend line. If we're taking it, from the extremes, maybe not that clean there, kind of on the breakout. Let's have a look. Yeah, I can definitely see the cup and handle pattern you're looking at, though, right? Because you're, again, far from my area of expertise, this, right? You want to be talking to people like Axel Kaibar about patterns, and that guy's just a genius, right? But you're talking about it like this, and then like this as well, I assume. And you know what they say about assumptions, but I would think it's looking at something like this, right? So there's the cup, there's the handle. Now, what I do like about this, right, is that we've got a really, really clear, correct, awesome. Okay, I think we've got a really clear kind of resistance in here, right? Now, it's including those lows is probably a little bit too high, but what I always say when we're looking for resistance or support is kind of look for the obvious. And if we take it from the extreme, which is this wick, why is it this wick? Because that hasn't been retested yet. We can see that, resistance ultimately coming into an area of resistance on here as well. And on the daily as well, we'll definitely take a look at that, mate. But I think this as well, is looking like a little bit of a cut handle break above here. You would look for retest and then to long that. Obviously, there's nothing, there's no exact and clear level here. So what I would say is, the way I try to do it is I look at these and then I try and kind of embody those key highs. Yeah, I really don't mind if there's nothing like further back here. I'm not put off. What do I mean by that? Let me finish what I'm saying first of all. So this, yeah, is just a key area of resistance for me. Prices kind of come in resistance. Really clean way to look at this would be a good break above here, or in an ideal world, what you would see is price kind of come up, spend a little bit of time above the level, come down to retest it, and that then gives you the good long opportunities. He's going fractal, mate. It really is. So as we look at this here, we've got a key area of resistance. So I'm kind of favoring this to the downside more than the upside until we can get above this. All right. But let's just take a look on the daily as well. Let's just see what we've got in here. Just looking for any real kind of key SR. I mean, looking at this low in here is really interesting because what we can see here is price came into this low, closed below. So I would have been looking to short this. Yeah. Ultimately, what happened? Price ran away with Alice, came back in, then closed back above. So then what do we say? Well, we don't argue with it. We don't just say, well, I want to be short, so that's why I'm going to enforce my will on the market, because then you become liquidity for the wrong side, unfortunately. We close back above, retest this, holding this level, just simply looking to push it higher. Now, if I'm looking for confidence as to what's capping the market here, it's this swing high. So let's just do this slightly bolder. Yeah, that's the swing high capping the market. Rejection, 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 rejection. We then also get the great confluence as we move on to the 4 hour of seeing, yeah, that was the higher time frame level and seeing this kind of boxed area. Now, if you kind of draw these back, I think where a lot of people get put off by kind of using these areas is saying, yeah, but this is really, really messy. That's fine, though. I'm not really that worried about that, because I don't need it to go back in history, forever. But even if I draw it back here, it still has significance here. Resistance, close above, came into this area, saw support, closed below it. What did this end up being? This was ultimately just a deviation. When we got back above this level, we held, price closed below, retest, 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 retest. So long story short, still expecting, or favoring this for a move to the downside. No, but we have had this nice expansion higher. So we've come off. What have we done? Set the low. So lower low, lower high, higher low, higher high. So we're now kind of holding a bullish structure on this. And the other thing that we want to concern ourselves with is looking at this bullish gap which held price. I'll just do that in green. Right, so now we're kind of saying, okay, well, again, we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Or between support, well, actually caught under resistance, right? And we don't really have a clear read, so we just wait. I want to see price back above this here. I want to see a close above here, a strong close, see this area kind of retested before we drive up. A lot of liquidity resting above these highs, so they provide glorious targets should we do that. Until then, I think we're kind of looking a little bit lower still, and want to see how price reacts down here, which is our level at 2.281. If we flush this, close back above it, it could be showing the strength we need to move higher. If we close below it, then ultimately we'd look at this retest here and expect price to kind of push down into these lows just down here. All right, guys. Oh, and I see just a quick cheeky request here from N19HTM4R3. That is something I thankfully can't mispronounce. But yeah, it's a very interesting username. I like it. Right, so let's just take a quick look and we'll finish up on this. La Fouad. Okay, yeah, ICT. Yeah, I was part of Michael's original internship actually many years ago, and found it really, really interesting. For me, I think he brings kind of a good overarching view of price action. I'm not a believer that there's this, interbank algorithm and stuff like that, but not to say there isn't. I just don't know. What I do know is there's a lot of algorithms driving these markets, and ultimately price action is, that's where I kind of make my living. But I've studied a lot of these people, and I've found some really fascinating stuff as well. If you really want to kind of deep dive for me into price action, I think people like Trader SZ, Trader Dank as well is absolutely amazing. If you're looking at range trading, especially, and people like, one of the godfathers for me, somebody like Dante. But this is kind of impressive, could look to push up here. So let's finish on Ondo, yeah, which someone just kindly asked us for. And then we're going to call it a day. So where were we here on Ondo? Okay, so we obviously had some plans here previously. So let's zoom out. I mean, they definitely weren't daily plans, were they? So again, on a daily scale, look, support, resistance, 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 close above, retest for support, price goes higher. What do we then look for? We look for closes below these key areas for price to hold here. And then, we can see here we ultimately sold off. I would think the higher one up here is probably on an hourly basis, or maybe a 4 hour. Yeah, I'm not overly sure. Maybe even a lower time frame, or it's possibly just been moved from this wick high here, right? Because that would typically be why I'd be looking for resistance along this area, which encompasses this pinging between here. We got close above, support here. When that failed, we then got back below. Can then see how price ultimately showed weakness and sold off. But let's just do this, or actually just hide these, and let's do it from fresh, yeah? You're very welcome, mate. So we don't need any of this anymore. That was a really great buy down there, wasn't it? Interesting. Close above, support, still support, now back below. So I think this area is ripe for shorting on a weekly scale. Apart from that, not really a lot kind of being told on that. If we look at this on a daily scale now, yeah, it's actually a really key point here, this low. I think seeing how price reacts to this low can tell us a lot. I think if we get a daily wick below and a good recovery, I think we could look to push up into these highs. I think down here is probably the most likely target, or the first most likely target if we continue to push lower. Look at that wick, by the way. That's a huge downside wick there. So I think that's something that we really want to keep an eye on, that if we run this level. At the moment, we're just in this kind of interior swing low. Price does look like it's got a fair bit of momentum heading down here. So let's see what we get. We reacted from this bearish gap here, driving price down below our key weekly level. Now, I just want to see what price is doing here. It really is kind of as simple as that, really, on Ondo. If I'm looking to take positions in this, I think I'm happy to add here as well, certainly. Look at this nice consolidation before price really ripped. This is a really good area, actually. That's not been retested, which is massive. Yeah, I'm going to set some bids around here, guys. About 1.29985 here on Ondo. And I'll tell you for why. This was the consolidation. If we're looking at our kind of power of three, this was the consolidation. That was the manipulation, which caught people offside, and then we ultimately had this massive expansion here. So I think there's going to be buyers in here. So wouldn't surprise me to see quite fast acceleration down into this level, which I would love even more. Looking to trade this on the 4-hour, however, if we do get a close down here below this, especially a strong body close, we might get the opportunity here for some intraday plays off of this level if we retest it. All right, that's how I'd be looking at that. On the higher time frames, I kind of just really want to see price above this level here. If I'm looking at this consolidation and I'm allowing for these kind of wicks in here as well, yeah, you can refine that a little bit. You know, you wouldn't have to necessarily have it that deep, but I would be looking for at least that to kind of just always like try to embody, like make sure you're the bodies of the candles, the wick high, or certainly the one that was run, which would be that. We should actually make sure if we got the candle that was run, it would be slightly lower, should be here. And that's really, really nice and clean, right? So there's a consolidation, price offering resistance, or level, sorry, offering resistance, clean high above it. What happens here is the really key thing for me. We close above this area, retest it perfectly, and then we get that nice expansion. Price also closes just marginally above this swing high, but that's enough because of the body, the size of the body on the candle, and especially the downside wick. So I want to see price back above this level. Ultimately, we can see buyers stepped in here temporarily, but then they absolutely lost it. So price closing back above this level, I think they're the safer positional plays higher, but I'm definitely interested in being a buyer at these levels at 1.29985. All right, legends. Right. One more question. Since we're at it, can you share with us what are your trading timeframes day to day? First 2 hours of each session. Yeah. So intraday, I do like to trade in and around the New York opening time, just because the volatility that floods into the market. If I'm intraday trading, if I'm swing and position trading, then it's just 24 hours a day, really, in crypto. For example, I'll set an alert on this level here. So, all right, key levels, so I know what we're dealing with here, and then the time frame, and then bullish. So when I see that flick off on my phone, or if I'm in bed, the alert will wake me up. I'll come to the chart. But that might be 3 in the morning. It could be, you know, it's just one of those things really with this. One of the good things about traditional markets is you can kind of trade within the sessions for a lot of the time, but crypto doesn't really afford you that. But look, yes, yak, yes, as my dear Polish friends would say, is what it is. But yeah, intraday, I do like to align myself with volatility sessions, but I typically run them a little bit earlier and also a little bit later, about an hour either side, just so that I can kind of catch those moves. So let's see what we get here on Ondo. We are going to be back next Monday as well, so we can review these. But I don't believe there'll be a session on Wednesday, New Year's Day. So I will see all of you legends on Monday, hopefully. Let's see what, if anything, plays out between now and then. I'm going to go and set some limit orders, and then I am going to go and take my beautiful husky out on a lovely walk, because the sun has just peeked his head out here, so we'll go and find a nice park somewhere and go and have a little look. I'll be sharing some ideas, obviously, with members over at the Nest as well. So please do, if you're interested in that, go and take a look down in the description. You can find all the information necessary on how you can come and join us. Over 4,000 people live today, which is just a blessing for the last live show of the year. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to tune in this year and for the last 3 years and listen to me ramble on about crypto. It's been a great ride, and hopefully we've got a really, really prosperous and bullish 2025 coming on together. Have a fantastic week ahead. Wishing everybody a wonderful new year and a fantastic 2025. And I look forward to seeing you all on the other side of it and around the Nest. Take care, legends.